Hello and welcome to Console Shock, retro and modern gaming chat with me, Trev, and as usual, Stu. Hey, Stu.
Hi there, Trev. How are you doing?
Yeah, all right. Obviously.
Well, you say as usual.
Well, I know.
I was.
We had to fill the void. We had to fill your void.
Fill my void.
We filled your void last time.
Given the yellow card for the last one.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you went off on quote unquote holiday.
I was on holiday. And thank you very much for holding the ship, controlling the rudder.
Yeah, we kept it going. We had Al joined us. We had a very good chat with Al. It's always good to have him on there, being one of kind of the one of the founding charter members of Console Shock. But you're back now.
Yes,
I'm sure Al will be back with us at some point soon. You know, maybe the next episode or one after that. We'll come up with something, but. Yeah, it's back to the it's back to just me and you. So how you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good.
So we can get straight into a particular interesting point. Actually, we've kind of talked a lot about you've got into PC gaming, you've got yourself a little setup, and that's been what you've mainly been gaming on. I think as your PS5, you got an Xbox, haven't you?
I've got an Xbox. I haven't got a PS5.
You haven't got PS5. Has that been gathering dust since you've had the PC?
I've been playing. Yeah, I've certainly not been using it as much since I've got the got the gaming PC. But the way I see it is, over the year, let's say I can only do so much gaming. So the more machines I get, everything is just split up. Less. So if I just had an Xbox, for example, I'd put on, let's say each day I did an hour of gaming or maybe an hour and a half. So that's about 500 hours a year, potentially on average. So if I had a Switch, I'd probably do 500 hours on that. But because I've got, a Switch now and I've got my PC, I've got my Xbox and so on. So I'll still do about the same amount of gaming, but it's just all sort of split up over more machines.
Yes.
Rather than any more gaming.
That makes sense. So, but I get the impression that you're probably more. PC gaming is probably where you tend to jump on.
PC gaming is what I'm really enjoying at the moment, and I think after having a PC now for about sort of 8-9 months, I'm starting to really sort of get the hang of the controls a little bit more, and I still find myself, I don't know if other people do this or people might laugh at me, but when I'm using sort of the keyboard, WASD to control, I still have to look down to see, what do I press to jump, or where's the F button to look at something or to action something, and I still have to keep on looking at the keyboard, but I feel like I'm doing less of that now. Yeah. So maybe this is my age, and maybe sort of 10 years of not doing sort of PC gaming, I'm sort of losing the
muscle memory.
The muscle memory of it. And I think at one point I was I'm using the PC, so every game I must use the keyboard and mouse. That's the only way to play things. But then I sort of found actually I downloaded Grand Theft Auto 4. And actually, I use the controller on that. That just seems like the sort of natural way to control it. And I'm sort of actually going, well, if I want to use a mouse, that's fine. If I want to use a controller, that's fine also. And it's just getting more and more used to it. But I find, with first-person shooters, I'm getting a little bit better at them now, and really enjoying it.
Yeah, I've never really got to the point with keyboard controls of like FPSs or any games that support it, and to the point where it feels as natural as a controller. So I always go for the controller option. I don't play online multiplayer, which is where it really matters for you to be good at keyboard controls.
Exactly, Trev. I don't think I could go on to play Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever and completely dominate. I don't, that's not the route I'm going down. It's just so I can play, single player games.
I think even if you did, I think there are a lot there. You can go into lobbies that have controller users and keyboard users. They're divided up, so you're not like ostracizing yourself. Obviously, you go on like, I don't know, some hardcore PC gamer forum, and you'll say, I use a 360 controller when I game on PC, and they're like, oh, it's unplayable. You can't play any game like that. They're all unplayable. And it's like, no, not at all. It's just like, if you're hunched over, I don't have a PC gaming setup where it's all at a desk. I never have. I had gaming laptops, which I just plug into a TV near my sofa, or just play straight off the gaming laptop on a sofa. So I never really, the keyboard and the mouse isn't a great setup for that anyway. And to be honest, certainly since the Xbox 360 controller came out, controller support in PC games has been pretty ubiquitous, really. I think nearly, apart from games that obviously aren't designed for a controller or can really work with a controller, like a strategy game or something like that, that they won't support it really. But most genres will support a controller in some way, so you don't really need to worry that games don't support it. I just prefer playing a game with a controller. And PCs are perfectly fine for that. With things like football games, you can't really play with a keyboard and a mouse. You never have been able to, really. So, and it comes from I grew up on gaming on computers, Commodore Amigas, for example. But that was before the era where you use a keyboard really extensively.
Exactly. I never used a keyboard to control anything on the Amiga. It wasn't the way you control things. There was obviously the odd game.
There'd be flight simulators, and I played Front Elite on the Amiga that used a lot of keyboard, but that wasn't like constantly pressing buttons. It was turning off engines and turning them on and things like that.
I remember I had a Master System controller, and that's how I play all my games on the Amigas with a Master System controller. So that, holding a controller in my hand is completely natural. So it wasn't until later when you got into sort of first-person shooters.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember when I first played first-person shooters and things like Doom and Quake and stuff like that, I wouldn't use the mouse to control it. I would use the arrows.
Yeah, the arrow keys were kind of the first sort of. Someone might correct me on that, but it's in my experience, it was the arrow keys, that you would use to control your movement, and then the control button or the space bar would be, a couple of fire buttons, maybe a few others if it was a bit more complicated. But and that was quite easy, actually, to get used to that. But it was definitely the Windows, Intel, the Wintel world where that became prominent. Focusing because joypads and joysticks were never very well supported. You can normally always use a joypad or a joystick on a lot of games, a huge amount of games, but you'd often have to, it'd be difficult to configure, it'd be a bit janky. There's so many different types of
that was it. It went through an analog port, didn't it? Through the sound card.
Yeah.
And it was always, behind the computer. It fell out. It wasn't, really, it wasn't a great solution. And then the controllers, it was Microsoft really that came out with actually decent controllers.
Yeah, that's right. The Sidewinder and
Sidewinder,
kind of very early, kind of almost Xbox original prototypes. They were very similar size and shape, but it would be simple case just plugging it in. You'd often have to get a driver installed. If it was DOS, you'd have to configure it and assign and map all the buttons. And that wasn't like a universal thing. That was for like each game. You'd have to go in and configure the buttons. So obviously at the time, we wouldn't necessarily be like, oh man, I've got to do that again. It was just how it was. You just had to do it. Obviously the Amiga, you didn't really have that issue. It had built in, it was built with controllers in mind originally. You just plug the controller, and obviously, there's issues we could talk about with typically games only used one button, maybe two. Up to jump for platformers and all those things.
Awful. That was awful.
Yeah. Some games have worked fairly well with up to jump, like Zool, for example. I always find it actually a bit odd pressing a button to jump with that, because I was so used to the Amiga version of that. But when it came to those, and by the time, I wasn't really playing the Amiga anymore. I was playing console, so I was just using a controller again. I couldn't afford a PC when I was a kid. My dad didn't have one, or a lot of people that had their dad's PC or the family PC was like a handful of games on, like my girlfriend did. Her dad had a PC and it was the family PC, so she got to play Jill of the Jungle.
That's something we've not really talked about, but actually going back through, because I remember, my first PC, maybe this is for another episode, but I had, a Pentium 120, and actually the PC I bought back then, it cost the same amount as the PC I've got now. It was about, I remember it being about £900. And I'm thinking, oh God, I think I sold my two Amigas, and I worked every week, and had a little Saturday job. Yeah. And then
I mean, you're saying it costs as much as it does now, but you could probably double that in today's money in reality, right?
That's exactly my point, Trev. And
and
in reality, I think I had that for about 2 years, and then it wasn't obsolete, but it was, hold on, I need to be getting another one now. I need to be upgrading this, and I brought another one, and actually probably the second computer I bought was a little bit cheaper, and then you upgraded that again. And
when you got to the very end of the 90s, literally like 99, 2000, that was when they started to get sub £1,000, and even sub 800, £700. Yeah, I mean, I was the same. I couldn't afford we got a hand-me-down 486 PC in about 98.
Yeah.
I mean, that was already massively outdated. I mean, PCs age better now than they did then. And the 486 heyday, the heyday of the 486 was only actually about 3 or 4 years ago after that, but it was already like so old.
Exactly. Yeah. With PCs in those days, as soon as you bought it, it was out of date, and it's not out of date. It's like, you got a 4090, and now it was out of date, 20, as in it was obsolete.
You could have a 2080 or a 2060, and it's still fine. It's from 5 years ago, but 100%.
And my PC now is, I think I'm, maybe in a couple of years I might put some more RAM in it. I might buy another sort of a hard or SSD for it. And then probably in 3-4 years, I'll start to think about, actually, how can I upgrade this? Is it, should I get another computer or whatever? And and in the year I've had it, there's been no sort of degrading in performance, and that's what it was back in those days. Is as soon as you got a computer, it felt like the next lot. And if you got a computer with 8 megabytes of RAM, then the next time you looked in the magazine, all computers had 16, megabytes of RAM. And then, you looked in a month later, it was, you need to have 32 megabytes or...
Yeah, it was just constant. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that, I mean, that hand-me-down computer, I didn't game on it at all. I think I used it for the internet. It was just about adequate enough to run sort of very late 90s internet, as it was with the dial-up modem, which was great fun, actually. And that was for a couple of years, that was a PC that we had until we got something a bit better, another hand-me-down one, actually, that was a lot more powerful. That was like a Pentium 2, still old, but much faster. But I didn't game on it. I might have tried 1 or 2 little basic games on it, but to be honest... Yeah. At that point, I would have had a PlayStation 1, would have had my N64, might have even got my Sega Saturn around that time. So if there was a PC game that I wanted to play, there was probably a decent chance it would have a port on one of those consoles, especially something like Doom or even Quake. I could play that on the Saturn, and I did, in those days. And they were pretty decent ports. So I didn't really have a huge... I had friends, I've mentioned a chap... that I used to spend a lot of time with, really, really close mate of mine back in the day, a chap called Philip, and he used to have a PC in the mid-90s and used to like to go around and we'd game on it, and I would love to have had one for my own. But no, my dad wasn't into PCs, so we never really had one in the house. He didn't have, wasn't working in an industry where he needed one at home, which is the story that I hear of a lot of people that grew up with a family PC. So it was.
You've got to think it was those PCs. You bought it really, and what could you do at home? You could do, word processing.
Well,
that was it. There wasn't, you could do a little bit of, drawing on, Microsoft Paint or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, I guess you could obviously, if you get into the mid to late 90s, you've also got the internet you can muck around on, which was always good fun. And you got things like Microsoft Encarta and edutainment things that you can. I used to like mucking around on that as well, especially in the school library we had Encarta, and Paint of Microsoft Office. But to be honest, for people like us, it probably would be mainly for games.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't something that. So subsequently, I never really got into using the keyboard and the mouse. Then when you got into the 2000s, I had PCs at that point. But even then, I think really I didn't really use them for gaming. I bought myself a PC around 2003, and to be honest, actually, I was using Macs through the rest of the 2000s and 10s in terms of as a general purpose computer. If I wanted to game, I would use a console, and it wasn't until like 2014, I think, when I got a gaming laptop that I was like, right, I'm going to use this for gaming. And at that point, as I said, a lot of the games that I wanted to play were perfectly fine with hooking up an Xbox 360 controller to the PC. So I would just do that. But there's still a lot of jank to it. Obviously, we're hoping that Microsoft will release some kind of gaming optimized version of Windows that will, load up like Steam OS does on a Steam Deck.
100%. I mean, for me, I think they're really missing a trick with, not coming out with a little handheld and calling it, the Xbox deck or something. And
well, it's really the OS that they need to do. I think it's kind of not.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So all these other companies will actually they can install this other bit of software, because I mean this goes on to
Microsoft will get the money for it, the licensing, and
exactly. Really, what I wanted to talk about in this, and in 2 episodes ago, we were talking about Trev's gonna potentially buy the Steam OLED. And I believe you did buy that. Well, I know you did.
Yes.
And then, I sort of indicated that, well, if you buy that, I'll buy the Steam Deck off you, your old one.
The Steam Deck Classic, yeah.
And then I think you had to think about it. And then you messaged me, and, we met up for a few beers before Christmas. And I bought it off you. And if people, long-time listeners will know that I did have one before, and I was a little bit, it's not great. And actually, I look back, there's nothing really wrong with the machine. What was wrong with it was actually, I didn't really have any games on Steam. So I got it, and actually was like, oh, right, okay. So a game that I own on Xbox or on the Switch or something like that, I've got to buy it for £35 off just to see how well it plays. And I know I didn't really I wasn't in that Steam ecosystem, but now of course because I've bought my my gaming PC, so I have lots of games now on Steam which I picked up in the sale and so on. So I was like, well, actually, it's a perfect time. So I got the Steam Deck, and then instantly I had a few games that I could install on that. And, to cut a long story short, I'm really, really pleased with it. And I think it's an absolutely smashing machine. And, I was almost wanting to say to you, let's meet up in a few weeks, and you can show me how to put all the emulators on there and do all the other side of it. Which at the moment, all I've done is really just bought games off Steam and installed them and had a good time with it. So
you obviously the key factor there was you were saying I didn't have a huge Steam library, and now I have, and that kind of has opened up the Steam Deck as being a viable thing to game on now. So how does it work for you then? I mean, you got your desktop, because I don't have a desktop PC now. I've got 2 gaming PCs. Basically, I've got the Legion Go, which we mentioned before, previous shows. That's my Windows machine, basically Game Pass machine, you could basically say. And the Steam Deck is pretty much for everything else. Well, I'd probably use the Steam Deck more than the Legion Go, because I have so many games in Steam that I can play. And the battery is still a bit better, and it's a bit more. Obviously, Steam OS is such a big difference makes it so much easier to use than using Windows.
Yeah.
A big factor in itself. So do you find, is it 50-50 or is it 60-40 in terms of the split
well,
between
I'll
the
be
two
honest
there?
with you, I was away for sort of 2 weeks over Christmas, so over the last month or so, I've certainly used the Steam Deck more often. But then, one thing I really like about it is, I can be sitting at my desk where I am now, and I can play something like Grand Theft Auto 4, which I'm sort of going through again and really enjoying it. Playing it on my PC, and then with the Steam cloud saves, I can just go into the bedroom, go and sit in the living room, and then just pick up the game where I was on the Steam Deck, and that's absolutely brilliant. And then one other thing that sort of I remember sort of we talked about sort of previously was the Steam Deck is kind of like the power of a low-powered PS4. I think you described it as.
I'd probably say it's kind of between a PS4, probably close to a PS4 Pro.
PS4 Pro, yeah.
PS4 Pro,
Well,
I'd say,
that's quite interesting because one of the games I actually bought prior to Christmas was Cyberpunk 2077. And, I always thought it looked really good, but then it had such a poor launch. And at the time, I only had I think an Xbox One X, and it was so buggy and things. I thought, I'm not going to touch this. This looks awful. But then they slowly, improved it, and I had always had it in the back of my mind. I'll get that at some point. I know it's a big investment to get into that game time wise, so I'll get that at some point. So before Christmas, I picked it up on my PC, and I've really got into it, and then it's absolutely great to be able to play it on your PC. Then when I went away on holiday, I was actually playing it on the Steam Deck. And the fact is, obviously, on the PC, I'm getting 90, 100 frames, whatever I'm getting a second. And then on the Steam Deck, okay, I'm getting 30 frames. And obviously, the graphics don't look quite as a little bit softer, a little bit pixelated in the background, and so. But on the small screen, I'm not thinking actually this is a bad experience. This isn't great. This is actually it feels like I'm just playing the same game. I'm not playing anything that's cut down. And then something that I bought from you, for a nice decent price, and I'm like, wow, this is really good little machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's also weirdly for those games, it kind of unlocks, you've already talked about the commitment to time. Now you could just be sat at the sofa and not necessarily have to be, right, I'm going to go in my gaming room and sit on my PC and game for 2 hours. You don't really have to have that mentality, do you? You could just be sat in the living room, your girlfriend's, watching the TV. Maybe you would just be bumming around on the internet or reading a book in those sort of moments. But now you can just have your Steam Deck right next to you. You can turn it on and actually carry on, playing the same. You're not playing maybe in the Game Boy games. You'd have to play a completely different baby version of a game that you have elsewhere, perhaps on a Mega Drive or something. It's the same game. You can just carry on playing untethered. And that in itself is pretty cool,
I think the only downside I'll see with Cyberpunk is when I'm playing on the PC, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about first-person shooters with a mouse. I'm getting into situations in the game where I'll go into some yard and shoot all the baddies. So I'm in there and I'm going shooting them all, and it's great fun. And I'm not even sort of worried about shooting them and stuff. But then actually, when you do play it with the controls on the Steam Deck, it's like, oh, hold on, God, I've got to try and aim on those, and you're not quite as quick as I am with the
you won't be
with the mouse.
Accurate, you might need on the auto aim as well, because that might help it. You snap to sort of target.
Yeah, so I might start sort of playing around with the settings and see if there's some sort of auto aim, because
there normally
I had a bit the other day, and it was one of the story sort of missions. Okay, I've got to do this. I thought, well, I'll just play it on my Steam Deck. I really want to get through this bit, and I got up to this big gate, and I shot a few fellas, and then I can't get any further here. Died, had another go, and then I did it with the mouse and keyboard, and it was just effortless.
Yeah.
It's just click on them, dead, click on them, dead, click on them, dead, and away you go. So I think that's my sort of biggest gripe. But the point is, I play plenty of first person shooters on the Xbox, the PS4 and stuff like that. So I don't have a problem using the controller. I think I've got to get a little bit more used to it.
Yeah, those on the consoles probably would have the auto aim on, quite an extreme degree, won't they? Because obviously they're going to be played with the controller by default. So yeah.
I think I'm actually going to go and try that a little bit later on. Is turn on the auto aim and actually see if I get a little bit better or whatever, or find it easier to play. But to go back to what games I'm playing on it,
I think it will probably be picking up your settings from your desktop save, basically. So you probably wouldn't have tweaked with any joypad settings when you're playing it on that. So yeah, they might just be on the defaults, which will be like joypad particular stuff turned on. So yeah, probably when you go back on the Steam Deck, you can have a look and turn on the auto aim. Yeah, that'll probably make it a bit easier.
A game that feels really good is Grand Theft Auto 4, because that was designed for a console to be used on the Xbox 360. Hit the left trigger and you lock onto someone, absolutely no problem at all. Last moan about Cyberpunk is that I find that sort of controlling the car with the WASD is really quite awkward.
Yeah, you need more analog kind of a feel with a car or something.
Yeah. You're like, oh god, I've got to do a driving bit again. Oh, okay, let's drive there, and it's sort of holding. It's almost like the shooting feels a lot better on the PC, but the driving feels 10 times better on the Steam Deck.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, I'll do all the driving bits on the Steam Deck and all my shooting on the PC. But I'm absolutely loving the Steam Deck. It's really good, and I'll recommend anyone to go out there and get one.
Vampire Survivors.
Exactly.
That's perfect for the deck, isn't it? That sort of game.
Exactly.
And you can run those higher powered games. You probably have a bit more luck with those kind of games that were cross-gen. Actually, Cyberpunk wasn't really cross-gen initially, was it? It was just that there wasn't a PS5 or an Xbox Series. That was very, very shortly afterwards that they came out. But yeah, those sort of, certainly those era of games, going up to when the last console, the latest consoles came out, you're going to have a great time. You can run, modern, brand new stuff. There isn't really anything like that I'm playing, particularly on my Steam Deck at the moment. On my Legion Go, I have been playing Dead Space Remake. And it's actually okay. You need to lock it to 30, although you have to kind of find some good frame rate limiter tools, because Windows doesn't really have any of that built in, and the Legion Go ones are a bit janky. Not compared to the Steam Deck, which has an immaculate, frame rate limiter. And that's something you might want to look into more. I think we chatted about this a few episodes ago, of some of the power management stuff.
Exactly. And that's really what I want to, because I think it's just one of those things that I'll sit down with you and you'll go, oh yeah, Stuart, you got this setting on that, just drains your battery. But then, I'm looking at the Steam front page, and you can play Elden Ring on the Steam Deck, and that's a sort of a next gen game, obviously. Baldur's Gate 3. What other ones we got here? I think what was it? The Harry Potter game,
Hogwarts
Legacy, Sea of Thieves, Monster Hunter World. So there's loads of sort of next gen games, and I've actually started following a few YouTube channels now where they go, oh yeah, there's just been a patch for X and Y game now, and if you do this setting for Grand Theft Auto 5, you can see what I'm probably going to play next. Grand Theft Auto 5, it'll play at a solid 60, and so it gives you little tips on the settings to put the games on and things like that. And
you could probably find, even on something like Cyberpunk, if you're locking it to 30 frames a second because perhaps it's not very stable above that, and you'd rather just have 30 solid frames instead of juddering around 40 and 35 and that sort of thing, which isn't always a nice feel. You can lock it to 30, and because you've got it to 30, you could probably dial the TDP down. So instead of it drawing 15 watts, which obviously means your battery life is, going to be under 2 hours, you could potentially throttle that down to, 11, 10 watts, and you're not going to affect the frame rate because it's not needed to go over 30 frames. And you could, potentially get another half hour to an hour out of your Steam Deck. So yeah, I really would advise, especially on older games. I mean, newer games, like you said, if you try to play Dead Space Remake or Callisto Protocol, or Forspoken, or something like, or Sporefoken, as it's also known. You probably would need to run at the max on everything because you just won't be able to really,
But I think from my point of view is there are so many games, and this goes sort of back to what you've said previously. It's just brilliant for those older games, and then you look on Steam, and there's so many PC games that I've thought, I've never really had the opportunity to play because
and also you're not buying a new version of it, really. I mean, maybe it might not be in your Steam library, but it's not like with the Switch, obviously, Assassin's Creed Black Flag came out for, oh, great, I used to play that on my 360, but I've got to buy it again to play it on the Switch. Whereas, maybe it's already in your Steam library from years back. You can just download it, play it on your Steam Deck, or you could just buy it in the sale. It's not some new premium handheld special version that's come out. It's just the regular PC version you're buying. You're just playing it on a device that happens to be a Steam Deck. So you could just pay the £3 or whatever it is in the sale, because also the prices on the Steam sale are amazing, for a ton of games. So yeah, there's that element to it as well, and like I said, you kind of probably experienced that a little bit later on because you had your PC that you started building up your library to, and now you've actually done it. Your kind of games now have got a new lease of life that perhaps you wouldn't have really anticipated, being able to play them on the deck.
Exactly. And again, I think the deck's really good for, a lot of the more indie games and stuff like that, more unusual, smaller games and things like that, and getting your sort of your teeth sort of stuck into them. Yeah.
And obviously if it's perfect, great for emulation as well. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, and we'll probably meet up and we can, get you going on that as well. But perfect for emulation all the way up to, I mean, you might manage a few PS3 games on it with the right emulators, and it's perfect for that. Playing every console, on there is awesome. It's it gets a little bit difficult when you're playing, certain games that don't have controller support, like. Slightly weird, but actually some of the earlier Call of Duty, even the ones from the 360 era, like the first Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2, actually don't support controllers at all. So you might have to use a community layout that you can apply within Steam. But they don't always work perfectly. Like I play a lot of Oblivion on the Steam Deck still, and that didn't have joystick support at all. What it did to a very limited degree, you could use it to maybe move around, but you couldn't really play it completely on a 360 controller. But with like the community controller layouts that you can apply, you could do that, and you can play it completely with the Steam Deck controls, and it feels really good. But that's a game that you're not really looking to aim. You're not really aiming at stuff a lot. Well, probably if you're heavy with your bow and arrow in that, which I'm not. And that's your primary weapon, you might find it a bit annoying, but there's things like that can overcome some of the issues with controls. I mean, I've always wanted to play
sort of Skyrim on there. I think that sort of registered to work on there, because I always see that in the sales. I believe
that you'll be fine. That fully supported controllers when it came out originally.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind sort of giving that a go, and that always seems like it's in the sale as well. Things like sort of The Witcher, because I'm really enjoying Cyberpunk. But I wanted to obviously, you've had the ROG Ally. you got the OLED Steam Deck, and now you got the Legion Go. But the other day I saw, and I've got in my notes here, the CSI Claw, but it's the MSI Claw,
the NCIS Claw, NCIS Los Angeles Claw. That's what it is. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite cool seeing the LAPD Claw come out.
The Cagney and Lacey.
Yeah. Tango and Cash.
Starsky and Hutch.
Tango and Cash Claw.
Turner and Hooch. Turner and Hooch.
Yeah. Tango and Hooch, the crossover film. It was. I think we said way back when the Steam Deck was actually probably when it was announced. In 2021. I think, because it was 2022, early 2022, and people started to get them. I think we said, hopefully it will start an arms race, and everybody that makes any kind of gaming PC equipment will probably start bringing out their own. And we haven't seen it go berserk. I mean, Ioneo have gone nuts releasing a new handheld every couple of hours. But they're kind of
2-3 a week, don't they?
Yeah, it's it's absolutely insane. So it's not a bad thing. People take the piss out of them for that, but I think it's a good thing that they're doing that and pushing the envelope, sort of thing. But I think we probably said, probably Asus and MSI, and obviously I wasn't expecting Lenovo, but I think MSI was one in particular that we probably felt would bring something out, and I'm actually surprised it's taken them this long. I thought probably last year we would have seen them come up with something, but it looks like they have now with the Claw, and basically looks like a ROG Ally. It looks nearly identical, in fact, except it's black. I mean, it's not something. Apparently, it's got Intel. It's got an Intel SoC, so not the AMD one that we've seen in every other handheld, like the Steam Deck, for example, and the ROG Ally and the Lenovo. So it'd be interesting to see how well that Intel processor, Meteor Lake processor, apparently is what it's called.
So is it?
Performs.
So I'm reading about it now, and I thought obviously it'll have an Intel processor and then a separate, an Intel Arc GPU, but it sounds like it's one special made Intel system on a chip. But I mean, part of me sort of thinks, oh well. Why would anyone buy it if it's not part of the sort of the Ryzen AMD sort of family, or in Nvidia, or because people are obviously going to be playing this for games, and then Intel, the Arcs have come out to, a mixed reception, and I think they have certainly got better over about the year they've been out. So I'm thinking, it's a bit silly, isn't it? It is a bit strange. I mean, I guess they've obviously got a good deal with Intel, or Intel perhaps want to promote their gaming a bit more, so they've trying to, they've kind of said to MSI, hey, let's work together. We can make a handheld like these other guys have. Perhaps they feel the performance is better with this Intel SoC than with the AMD one, which it might be. I don't really know. I know Intel have come into gaming a lot more in the last couple of years with their integrated graphics. Are a lot better than what they used to be, and can run sort of games like current gen games, not at the highest settings, of course, probably far from it, to be honest. Probably closer to what a Steam Deck or a ROG. This might potentially come out of the go down the route to go, well, actually, this can't push 60 frames a second at 1080p, whatever it is, but actually the battery can last 7 hours. So let's say when they start to do the reviews and you go, actually, the performance is not quite as good as the Legion Go, but the Legion Go can last 2 hours 15 minutes. I don't know if that's the case, but then this because there must have to be a unique selling point, because if I saw this and the Legion Go, or the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck, I mean, I wouldn't really trust in Intel to go, that's going to be a good gaming machine, because the Arc, the issue is, once the actual with the Arc, they're very good, and once it's been optimized, but if it's not optimized,
the drivers are like a bit janky.
It's rubbish. It's rubbish performance, even if it works.
Yeah, I mean, there's been issues with those with the AMD drivers, for the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go. Some games are perhaps not performing as well as they could on that hardware because the drivers are, aren't quite there yet, which is an issue. It'll be interesting. I'm not expecting it to particularly be much more performant than the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck or the Legion Go. I think it would probably be about the same. I don't know if there are advantages with using Intel in terms of battery. Again, I'm probably thinking not. I think it'll be about.
I don't know, but there must have to be a reason why people are. Well, why would people be actually using it? That's the question. Because why would they purchase that over a Steam Deck, which is it's got a proven track record. It probably costs less.
Probably still the best one of the lot, I would say, and that's from someone that's used, a couple of the other ones and has one of the other ones. The other ones do have kind of a USP, don't they? And obviously, the Steam Deck being the first one and having the Steam OS, I would say sort of Steam OS is kind of the killer app for the Steam Deck, and being in that ecosystem makes it really easy to use.
Exactly.
The Ally, when that came out, it was basically being able to run Windows, so your Game Pass could be on it. The Legion Go, it had the Game Pass advantage as well, but with the big screen, which is why I like it. So it's got the big screen, potentially could make you want to get that versus the others. Whereas this, it kind of just looks like an MSI branded ROG Ally. Maybe their software might be better, in terms of like you have with the Steam Deck, you can bring up menus that you can limit the frame rate.
One person, maybe it was the Legion Go or the ROG Ally. It was, you go on there and it comes up with the ROG Ally sort of skin, and that's brilliant. And you can, install your games and manage it all on a really nice interface. Then all of a sudden, that will disappear, and then you've got to do an update on Windows.
Yeah,
and it sort of completely takes you not out of the world. But hold on,
it hasn't really.
I was in this that was working quite smoothly.
Yeah,
and now I'm back in. In my
Windows land,
Windows, and I'm trying to tap a little icon, with my finger on the screen. That's really
or using a joystick to move a mouse cursor around.
Exactly, and it really. I don't know. Yeah, and I think that's where it comes down to a dedicated version of Windows that are designed for these
joypad controls,
with joypad controls or portable gaming, whatever it's called. And
the Steam OS has nailed it. I mean, there are instances where you launch a game, especially if it's the game that you're launching for the first time, and you've got to deal with a settings window or a launcher. But you've got the little trackpad, and you're not like on a desktop. It just isolates that window for you and has it there. And you can just deal with the settings you might have to do, or you can use the trackpad to navigate the mouse cursor around and click, and then you're done. And from that point, you're joypad all the way. And it doesn't really feel like you're playing a game that's running, on a PC. Really, it's but you're right. These ones that have these so-called launchers and stuff, you're still just you're thrown back into the Windows desktop anyway. I don't really use them. The Legion Go is like a game launcher thing, but a lot of the time, it'll just dump you back to Windows, and you might have to try launching it again. It's a bit, their software is a bit janky. I'm okay with dealing with Windows, but I really would like them to come up with a gamer optimized version of Windows where it's basically like an Xbox. And those Windows games, you just use the the joystick to navigate to the icon of it. You press A or whatever, and it launches it. Okay, maybe it'll have to present you with a launcher, but there'll be ways where you can navigate that with the joystick. Maybe the handheld has a trackpad that you're using, and hopefully when Windows come up with that, when Microsoft come up with that, it will be used on all of these handhelds going forward that aren't Steam. And it will become better and standardized, and hopefully it'll just evolve over time. But they need to release it, and if they're even working on it, we've heard rumors that they are.
I mean, we almost sort of predicted what's happening with this has become the third different way to play PC games. You've got gaming laptops, you've got desktops, and now you've got handhelds.
Yeah.
And so, they've never really had dedicated gaming versions of Windows for laptops, but then they probably not really needed them because you've got the touchpad, you've got the mouse and the keyboard. But then I really think there is a need for some sort of dedicated, and ideally they should work with Asus and all these people to make a version. And I was just sort of thinking is so with your Legion Go, could you you can plug an external monitor into it and you can plug keyboards into it, so could you have that sitting under a screen and have a keyboard and mouse all plugged in and do a bit of word processing and work on PowerPoint and
it's just a Windows device at the end of the day.
Well, of course it is, but
just like you can do that with a Steam Deck. You can download a word processor in the desktop mode that you can go into on the Steam Deck, and you can use it as a PC. I've watched videos of people using it for video editing and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
Plugged into a big monitor and a mouse and a keyboard attached, and they use it for that. So you can absolutely you use it for that stuff. But going back to the MSI Claw. I'm not really seeing. I mean, if you MSI do make good gaming hardware. I've used MSI. I've owned MSI gaming laptops, and I've had them fail on me a couple of times. But apart from that, they're pretty decent. So I guess it's more if you're a big MSI fan, or if you think they're going to have really good software with it that will make navigating, gaming on Windows easier on a handheld. I don't like the fact it doesn't have a trackpad. I think a trackpad is kind of essential at the moment on gaming PC handhelds, because it's a really good option sometimes to be able to use a trackpad to use a mouse. Not necessarily for a game, but you can use it. Obviously, there's plenty of people that love using the trackpads for games on the Steam Deck. But just to navigate those instances where you do need to, navigate in Windows, or you've got a launcher that's come up that you need to click a button on, or you've got a settings menu you want to click that you have to click buttons on, a trackpad is a really good option.
But it is got a touch screen though, isn't it? I would imagine.
I always find they're a bit it's easier to use a trackpad than a touch screen.
I think actually another thing about the Steam Deck is whenever the keyboard pops up and I've got to put something in, I always think that's a little bit clunky, a little bit like, I can never hit the right buttons, and
it is a little bit, it's not quite as good as a phone,
Yes, it's not as good as a phone, and
you have to be very deliberate with where you're pressing, sort of thing. It's certainly not been designed with the idea that people are going to use it a lot, really. It's probably just for those times when you want to just tap a button, and because there are issues where the trackpads aren't necessarily turned on if you're presented with a launcher. You've kind of got to hold down the Steam button and then use the trackpad then to get the mouse to work with the trackpad when you're dealing with this a launcher. But you can always use the touchscreen is always available to use in those instances, so it can be useful for that. But I don't use it a lot for as a touchscreen really.
One thing I think I sort of touched upon it earlier was talking about Cyberpunk. Now I know you have you played it, or?
I did play it. I played it for a few hours not long after it came out. I got a copy of it. Let's just say through non-usual means, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, just so I can see what it was like. I did like it. I did get a few hours in, but I just haven't got around to buying it again because it is something I would like to. I probably would play on the Steam Deck a lot.
Because I mean I'm really sort of enjoying it, but I mean I touched upon it earlier with it came out probably nearly 3 years ago, 2.5-3 years ago.
It's kind of crazy.
And it's an amazing looking game. I'm really engrossing. I'm really enjoying it. But this is I'm on patch 2.1, and the original. The question is really, what do you think about these games that obviously came out? And I think on the PC it was fit for purpose, but had a few bugs. on the Xbox One, on the PS4, it wasn't ready. So I mean, what's your thoughts on that? You know, the fact that a game came out and it's really a year or two later that actually it's been patched well enough for it to be the experience that they promised.
Yeah, it's become a common thing now, hasn't it? Really, with a lot of games do that now, and it has been like that for several years, really. Yeah, I mean, my opinion is quite simple. I think, you know, I'm happy to wait for a game to be, you know, 100%, you know, bug fixed and playable, and I think they should wait until it is. I know you're never going to get every single bug, you know, squashed, you know, completely. But certainly things like, you know, crashing and the game absolutely like failing and stuttering and all kinds of huge issues that affect the gameplay. At least iron those out and then release the game. I don't think that will require the game to be delayed by several years or anything to get that far. So I think that should be the way it should be dealt with. Obviously, that was you know, games were like that when you only had a disc copy that you could bring out, and maybe there'll be an online update you could download, but that wasn't the be all and end all. Now it's become expected that you kind of release like a near final version of the game, really.
Yeah.
A pre-retail copy of the game, they actually release it to the public, and then they just patch it later on. No,
well, exactly. I mean, that's what they do now, and I'm tempted. I'm not going to, but I'm tempted to almost buy an Xbox One, buy a disc version of Cyberpunk, and then, you know, disconnect it from the internet, pop it in, and to actually see what the experience is like.
I'm pretty sure there's probably I think there's YouTube channels that do that, don't they? Where they disconnect from the internet and see what games are unplayable or playable. So I remember John. There was I was on Twitter and John Linneman, who we had on the show a while ago, great dude, really awesome at work at Digital Foundry. He got into this argument about people like whether you're actually just buying a coaster and you'll never be able to have a complete game on a disc these days. Or at least a version of the game that doesn't have any, game-breaking bugs. And John was very adamant, actually. He was saying, "Oh no, like they definitely release like every game without a game-breaking bug." And I'm like, surely you can't know that for sure, though. To be honest, you can't. As soon as you put a game in, it will download an update now before you even get to start it. So you might, unless you're completely disconnected, you won't know. But I'm sure there are some games out there that would have some kind of game-breaking bug. That mean you can't get past a certain point, because it is literally will kick you out or will crash or something.
I think that, that there must be. And definitely. I listened. I can't remember what game it was, but this YouTuber called Radical Reggie, and I listened to his pickups were, and he got a game.
Metal Jesus is
his pal, and he got a game, and it's I can't be bothered to do the intro, so he started playing it. No, he couldn't be bothered to do the download, so he just said, "Oh no, I'll play it," and then it was hold on, this is different. What's wrong with it? And it had a completely different intro, completely different like first level. Then he did the update, and then it was a game that he'd seen reviews of, and it was obviously the same game.
Yeah,
but it was actually this doesn't work. This intro, we don't like it. We're going to do a new intro, and it was almost like a different game.
Yeah,
and that was a little bit, that's not good, isn't it? And you're always almost sort of worried about if I do buy Cyberpunk on a disc and I want to play it in 15 years time and I want to play it on an Xbox One, when I put the disc in, what will it download? Will it download anything? Will it download the game? And let's hope it does. But imagine if you buy a record from the 1960s. As long as you got a record player, it'll play.
Yeah.
And I don't think in 50 years' time will you be able to play Cyberpunk? Will there be a way to play your old copy of Cyberpunk on a disc? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of another aspect of how we're every single thing with digital copies of things is tenuous. Recently we got a 4K Ultra HD TV for our living room. We've had one in the house for a while that we've used for other things, but as our main TV, we actually haven't had one until Christmas. And I've actually sort of made the decision to I'd actually quite like to get a collection of 4K Ultra HD films. Because I can get digital copies of these and stream them and everything. But, one aspect of it is, I've got a Blu-ray 4K player coming in. I've ordered one. I'm waiting for it to arrive. A dedicated one.
Why do you play it on get an Xbox Series X?
I don't have. I've
PS5?
got a One X, but we don't. I use it for it's not connected to our living room TV, so we need something for that. So we've got a cheap, player. It's only about 150 quid. There's obviously the advantage of the bit rate will be way higher on a copy of a film on a disc versus something you'll get streamed, so the quality will be a lot better. But it's also the fact that, it'd be nice to have physical copies of these, because if we lose a subscription to something or we just can't bother to pay for a certain one, there's, a bunch of films that we like, we might not be able to get access to. And I'm the sort of person that I love rewatching old films that I've seen billions of times. I don't just buy a film and then watch it once and put it on the shelf and never watch it again. I'll probably get round to any film that I'd own again at some point. Obviously, there's particular favourite films I own that I like to watch, each year, again, sort of thing. So it'd be nice to have, physical copies of that. And because, there's probably a good chance when we get to 8K, they might not bother having a physical movie thing for that at all. We might be seeing the last generation of physical copies of a movie. Might be the 4K Ultra HD versions.
I mean, that's it. These days, to get a 4K UHD, I remember Blu-rays. No, sorry, DVDs. They were just millions and millions of them, piles of them everywhere. And it was such a big deal. Then Blu-rays were, there wasn't as many. Then 4K UHDs. Now there's, I wouldn't know.
The range is definitely a lot more. The range is definitely more limited. I mean, I've picked up a whole bunch, literally in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, and mainly I bought a couple from CEX, funnily enough, because they're pretty good prices in there. But also just the classic HMV. They do a pretty good 2 for £25 deal. We picked up a bunch in there. But they're definitely not to the selling to the degree that even Blu-rays have. They've been out since 2016, which is kind of weird.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's when they
is,
started.
yeah.
Around the time like the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro came out. Although weirdly, the PS4 Pro didn't. I don't think you can play 4K Blu-rays on that. I know the One X you can. They've been out for a few years now. Several years. There's obviously a lot of films that aren't available. Like some of my favorite films, like Aliens and True Lies, aren't available in 4K. Weirdly, they're coming out soon, but it's taken several years. Basically, as we've gone through the lifespan of optical video video and optical media as a mainstream thing, going from DVD, which was ginormous and maybe even bigger than VHS, I would say, probably.
100%.
DVD era, yeah.
100%. It was. I mean, if you go to things like Tesco's now, you don't see DVDs or Blu-rays. You don't see computer games anymore.
If they do sell movies, it will probably just be a DVD. I've been in our local Morrison's. We were in there the other day, and we actually thought, I wonder if they do 4K deep Blu-rays. And we looked, and it was just DVDs. It wasn't even Blu-rays. It's crazy. Plenty of people obviously still buy just DVDs. But yeah, you're right. They're slowly dying. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We were talking about, Microsoft release there, or there was someone stole their plan for the next 5 years, and part of that was abandoning the disk drive. And I'm 100%. The disk drive that should stay. That's but then actually I probably don't use it that often.
Well, there's an interesting point that I think the Digital Foundry guys have brought up with regard to if they do just go completely diskless and there's no disc-based Xbox console, because from what we've seen with their leaks, it looks like they're going to try and jumpstart the next generation like the Dreamcast did and get out there before Sony, because they might think that's the only way they could potentially win the next generation. And it's it's a fair shout. They may be able to do that if they do jumpstart things. Doesn't always work out for the console that jumpstarts, though, as history can attest to. The Dreamcast, there you go, straight away. But what I think will be a bad thing for them is if they don't have any like disc-based games, and again, this is what Digital Foundry alluded to. What is their presence in shops going to look like? You'll have walls of PS5 and PS6 disc games, walls of Switch 2 games, Nintendo Switch 2, and there'll just be a little bit for the Xbox where you could for the console and some vouchers. That'll be it.
Well,
so, yeah.
But you think, the Steam Deck's done extremely well, and that's not sold in any retail. That's all sold through Steam. I don't know if it's on Amazon as well. Might be.
Yeah, I guess it's a different kind of. It's a PC device, isn't it? Really. So, but PC gaming has survived without really having any physical presence.
Trev, I really wouldn't be surprised if the next generation of PS, let's say PS6 or PS5 Pro, or the Xbox, Series Next Gen, whatever it's going to be called, I think there's less chance of them having a disc drive on there.
That's true. With each generation, I think the chance increases that everybody will just drop it. But I do think that it would affect, certainly in terms of the mind share and like the shop space share, which is very important for just general, seeing who are the people that are who's winning. You can look at giant area of PS6 games, disc-based games, versus a few boxes of Xbox consoles. People are going to obviously compare the two and be like, well, obviously that's the one I should go for because look at all the stuff that they've got in the shop. You could be right. Microsoft might not care about that. Oh, well, no one's buying those discs.
Well, their business plan might be, or they can even go down the route of going, let's just put a CD-ROM drive in it, and you put the disc in, and all it does is send a message to the store to download, FIFA. 29 or whatever it is.
Well, you could argue we're already there, right? With the downloads you have to do on day one,
Exactly. So basically, that could just be, something you buy in the shop, and then you can still trade it with your friends, but they've just got to download it as soon as they put the disc in. And
I guess they could overcome the whole issue with space in the shop for creating the mind share. They could say, look, they could just make tons of vouchers and make sure the shops use up a load of space, so they could brute force it with the money that they've got, but they might not. I'm not sure if they've got the appetite for that with the amount of money.
I'm sounding really negative here, but in 5 years' time, will that still be around?
Yeah, well, it's still around, to be honest. Yeah,
exactly. I walked into the one in Bromley before Christmas, and it felt like a toy shop.
Yeah, they're evolving into that, aren't they? Slowly but surely. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And literally 50% of the shop was cuddly toys, board games, figurines.
They might as well be Forbidden Planet at this stage.
Exactly. That's the route they're going down.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, where's the Xbox section? Oh, it's over here in the corner. And I had a look, and
that being, swollen up by Sports Direct with its weird little game concessions that are in there now. I was in the Glasgow Sports Direct, and on the very top floor there was a little corner that was actually game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was similar to just a dedicated shop. This is, I'll say, it was in Glasgow. So it's the same all around the UK, not just in Glasgow. But my local one here, where I live in Woolwich, we've got a Sports Direct, but it doesn't have. They sell FIFA or FC 2024, but it's not a dedicated game concession. But that one in Glasgow was, and it was literally like a little corner of the top floor. There was otherwise like tennis equipment and sports stuff and gym stuff. There was a game. It had its own little till. So you could buy stuff right there. It had like as you say, board games, toys, and all the consoles out, and selections of games. So they're evolving. I mean, they might not go under. They might just evolve until they're kind of unrecognizable, and basically, like we say, just kind of another Forbidden Planet, really, with maybe a few games, a smattering of games to get them by.
Yeah, exactly. And I just can't, and it's terrible. And you can see with CEX is they're more going into entertainment or mobile phones and buying and selling laptops and things like that, and actually, in fact, retro games and the DVDs section. I almost sort of laugh because actually, if you see the amount of space they devote to DVDs and stuff, that's a lot of retail space. To dedicate to something.
For 360 and PS3 is still huge.
Well,
as well. Yeah,
exactly, and I think that's a brilliant thing. And I love going in there and looking through the 360 games, find some old ones, and buying them for £3 or something. But in reality, you're putting a lot of shop retail space there to sell. If you imagine the the CEX near you, all that space, and if they sell £50 a day worth of Xbox 360 games, or even £100 a day worth of DVDs, I don't reckon they do.
Yeah, well, the one in Woolwich, which is actually a pretty good one. Still sometimes smells of sweaty vinegar, but it's they've got a huge DVD, like an entire almost like a room of DVDs and Blu-rays. They've got a little, I mentioned already that I've bought some 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays, but that's just like one little kind of unit, like panel. They get like one individual segment of like out of 10. It's absolutely tiny compared to the Blu-rays and the DVDs, and even like the PS Triple has got has got 2 or 3 gondolas worth. The 360's got like several like units of wall stuff. And then obviously, Xbox One, S, X, PS5. It's probably the better. I mean, that's where I get my games still. So new and old. I mean, they're not always brand new. You do sell some brand new games, but I don't tend to buy brand new games. So a lot of my gaming's on PC. So if I'm buying a game in CX, it's probably some old PSP game or a 360 game or something. So. Yeah, there's no way I'd ever be needed to go into a game, really. The last time I bought a bunch of new games, I do buy new Switch games, but to be honest, I've tended to either get them from Amazon or Smith's Toy Shop, which is actually really good prices.
Okay, I've not thought of that.
So those guys or Amazon. When I was in Gibraltar, there was a ton of places to get Switch games. I bought a whole load of brand new games that are a lot cheaper than they are in the UK. So if you ever want to buy Switch games, I recommend Gibraltar. It's easy to nip down there for games. But well, there we go. It's not looking good for physical media, is it, at this point? But we'll just have to see. I thought it'd probably already be dead by now, and it's still going. So
still going.
You never know; it might carry on. But anyway, Stu, where can you find us on the interwebs?
You can find us everywhere. So we're on YouTube, search Console Shock. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts. Again, search Console Shock. And you can find us on Twitter and you can find us on Facebook. Again, search Console Shock.
Cool. Well, please check us out on our various places that we lurk on the internet. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.
Take it easy. Bye-bye, guys.